Welcome to the Stronger Walk podcast. This is where we challenge you to turn your faith into action and grow as an intentional, action-driven disciple of Jesus Christ. I'm your host, Tiffany, and today we're diving into a powerful message from the teaching ministry of John Alsdorf. Today's sermon is titled, Is There Such a Thing as Absolute Truth? And it focuses on the logical fallacies surrounding moral relativism and postmodernism. This message is designed to equip you with the tools and encouragement you need to boldly live out your faith. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and motivated to strengthen your walk with Jesus and become a more action-driven disciple. Let's jump into the message.
Because we are in the middle of our fall spiritual growth campaign called Reason for Hope. And over the last few weeks, we have been, on Sunday mornings, we have been talking about different questions that unbelievers maybe, or even believers might raise. And we're just talking about those things and in hopes of creating a resource for you. Because someday, I don't know when, might not be today, might not be tomorrow, someday, maybe somebody's going to ask you some of these questions, or maybe someone has asked you some tough questions, and you're just like, I just don't know how to answer that. And so we're trying to create these things as a resource. I hope you'll take these sheets and keep them, hold on to them, file them away for somewhere, and maybe every now and then go over them. But when someone asks you a question, you might think, you know what? I got some information about that. You can pull that out and share some of these answers. So we've talked about a few weeks ago. We talked about, is God real? How do we explain? How do we lead someone rationally and reason? A reasonful answer. Is that a word? I just made up a new word, I think. Reasonful answer? Is that a real thing? I don't know. We're doing all kinds of stuff in here today. How do you lead someone through that process of coming to a logical conclusion about this question, right? And we've talking about all these things. And so I've tried to organize this. I think I have tried to organize this so we're kind of moving in a direction, right? We're starting, that's the big question, right? Until you settle that question, is there a God? You're not going to get much closer to Jesus. But each of these questions gets us a little bit closer to Jesus. And I want you to know that there's sometimes we're gonna meet people who have questions, but maybe not that question yet. Oftentimes, when it comes to evangelism, we kind of think we've got to just like run someone to the cross as fast as possible when they're like, that's not the question I'm wrestling with. And so maybe they're just back here wrestling with, is there a God? Is any of this rational or reasonable? I'm a scientific person. A couple weeks ago, we talked about that. Is there this war between science and God? And realized, no, there is not. God is the God of science. He made all this, and science points in every way to God, just like a painting points to an artist. And today we're going to kind of take the next step, and we're going to be talking about this topic of truth itself. Is truth a real thing? I tell you what, you have been watching for the last 20, 30, 40 years, our culture wrestling hard with this idea. Is truth real? Is truth objective? Is it just whatever's true for you? Right? We just sort of make our own truth. This is an issue that is so prevalent. It is pervasive. It's in every, these ideas are in every part of our culture, from the top to the bottom, from the left to the right. Is truth real? What is truth? Is there such a thing as objective truth? Is there such a thing as absolute truth? And so we're going to delve into this a little bit today. So on right on the page 1 there, we start with this question. Because when someone asks a question about truth, one of the first things that we ought to do is begin by defining terms here. What do we mean by truth? What do we mean by objective or absolute? Or what are we talking about? Are we even talking about the same thing? And so have this conversation a little bit. And so we have to deal with this. What do we mean by objective truth? And when we talk about objective truth, we're talking about a statement that is true, independent of what anyone thinks, feels, or believes about it. That is what we mean by objective truth, not subjective truth, right? Subjective truth is how you pick out a pizza, right? And some of you just like, where are the cheese pizzas in here? Who's cheese pizza? That's just, yep, we got one. Oh, I'm sorry. I got some space in my counseling schedule on Tuesday. I'm just kidding. She's my cousin. I can pick on her, right? It's subjective, right? What's your favorite fill in the blank, right? And that's what we're talking about when it's subjective truth. But objective truth is true no matter what you think or feel or believe. We know that at sea level, water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. It doesn't matter how you feel about that. It doesn't matter if you wish it was something else. This is an objective truth. And so when we say God exists, we are saying, we are expressing a truth that is true whether someone believes it or not. Right? And so when we talk about this, we're talking, this is how the scriptures, this is how the Christian worldview sees, we say worldview, it's how we see the whole world. It's the lens in which we see everything. And this is an objective reality. And so for the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about how objective that reality is. So if you have questions about that, go back and listen to some of these messages. What do we mean when we talk about absolute truth? When we say absolute truth, we're talking about a truth that is true for all people, in all places, at all times. That's what, when we talk about objective, or not just objective, but absolute truth. Let's put it this way. When I say murder is wrong, I don't need the 10 Commandments to tell me this. People all over the world who have never heard of the 10 Commandments believe this to be true, hold this to be true. It is a principle wherever you go. Thinking people, rational people, all believe murder is wrong. And that is, that's not a short list. Actually, there's a lot of things that we all do with this. We, when we're children, we understand. No one has to tell us that when someone on the playground comes up to you and just takes something out of your hand because they want it, they just take it from you, that's not right. That is not fair. There's something morally wrong about this. And they didn't have to hear a sermon on it to come to that conclusion. It's written on our hearts. We are born understanding these things. These are what we would call moral absolutes. Every person believes that it's better to tell the truth than it is to lie. Societies that embrace truth are better societies, right? And that's kind of dangerous to say. In this world, we're like, oh, how can you say one culture is better than the other? I like how John Stone Street puts it. He says, we all believe that societies that forgive one another are better than societies that eat one another. Right? Like no one is against that. No one says, well, wait a second, not so fast there. Nobody thinks that. So, we look at, that's a pretty extreme example, but if it's true in the extreme, it's true. And so not everything is the same. So there's absolutes exist. And so when we talk about absolute truth, that's what we mean. It means it's absolute, it's true for all people in all places at all times. And then, I'll take it a step further and say, in the biblical view, and this is so important, especially for us as believers to understand and embrace that truth itself is grounded in the character of God. Truth itself is grounded in the character of God. God is the ultimate truth. There's an answer to this question, what is truth? The ultimate answer to what is true is God himself. Truth is bound up in his character. Truth is what God is. It is what he represents about all things that exist. This is, for the biblical worldview, this is truth. We're gonna dive into that a little bit later. We're going to go through a few things first before we go a little bit deeper with that idea. But what I want to talk about is the conflict that is going on in our culture right now. And as a matter of fact, of everything that we've talked about, we talked about the science-faith conflict, and that is definitely a real conflict, even if it's it's based on myth. It's really not based on truth. This perceived conflict between faith and science. There's a conflict between, faith, or we'll call it theism, and atheism. But it's really it's not nearly as big of a conflict as we make it most of the time, or that we perceive it. In our culture, this is a big conflict. This idea of truth. Because what's happening here is we're actually getting, we're getting closer to where the rubber meets the road, right? When we talk about truth and subjective truth and objective truth and things like this is actually where we live. This is actually where we are making decisions and taking action. And so this is where the battle gets hot. This is where, when you're watching the news, this kind of stuff is coming into play all the time. When we talk about or read about or learn about politics, this is where most of the heat is being created. It's kind of on this battleground, this idea of truth itself. And so let's look into that. Why is it that this is that truth is under such attack today? And I want to start with this. I want you to know that the attack on truth isn't new. It didn't start in the last election cycle, or it didn't start when you were born. It didn't start when your parents were born or your grandparents were born. The battle over truth has been a hot battle from the beginning. I just for fun, on the front page there of your outline, you put some pictures of some of the leading thinkers in this area of relativism and stuff like that. One of them, his picture's a statue. Yeah, remember when that's how your picture, they used to take your picture and they'd carve a statue. It took a long time. It was, man, could you imagine sitting for that photograph? This guy is old. I don't even know how to say his name right. But this guy is older than Aristotle. This guy is older than Plato, right? But one of the voices in ancient Greece that was very much a believer that truth was subjective, that we make our own truth. Truth is about us. And that idea is an old idea. It's older than that guy. It's older than statues, you guys. It goes clear back to the garden. It was the very first attack. Truth, Satan attacked truth. Did God really say? So this is an old war. And so here's we'll start with some of the ideas, the pervasive ideas in this battle that have been around for a long time, but we see them everywhere in our culture. The first is the idea of relativism. And that has gotten a big boost in the last century. We learned in science that gravity is relative, and we took that and we applied it to everything. Everything is relative. And we got around to applying it to truth. Truth is relative. That means it depends on where you're standing. It depends on what you're thinking, how you're feeling, all of this idea that truth is relative. That may be true for you, but not for me. That's your truth. You know? Live your truth. That's good. Good for you. Live your truth. Truth is seen as a personal preference or an outcome of experience. It all depends on what you've been through, what kind of family you were born into, what kind of culture you were born into. You know, and so the truth is relative. The second one is moral subjectivism. And that's simply stating that right and wrong are viewed as just social constructs. You ever hear that word? How about all the time, right? Oh, it's a social construct. I was talking to somebody not that long ago, and it came up. Oh, yeah, I'm running late. I didn't realize what time it was. I'm running late. I got to get to an appointment. And I heard, oh man, time is such a social construct. I'm like, time is a social. What in the world are you talking about? Time is no. A wristwatch is an invention. Is that what you meant to say? Because that's not saying the same thing, right? I'm pretty sure time is a physical feature of the universe. You know, time passes. You can go one direction in it, and all this. But we just think everything is a social construct, and somehow, first of all, that is assuming most of the time that every social construct is somehow evil. Oh, marriage is just a social construct, just a piece of paper. Doesn't mean anything. Wow, that is a leap. That is a leap. That is putting on a blindfold and leaping into the dark. Such a silly thing to say, but this is what happens with moral subjectivism. It's what says, and you've heard me say that I just don't like this. I don't like this statement very much. It's what says, it's warm, fuzzy stuff. Just follow your heart. Careful. When it comes to following your heart, before you follow your heart, just read a few verses in Scripture that talks about following your heart, so that you can realize that most of the time, that's a pretty foolish thing to do. Follow your heart. Live your truth. You do you. Don't worry about any of this other stuff. It's just social construct. Moral subjectivism. The third is pragmatism. Now, listen, I'm not talking about being practical. Some of you are very practical people. You're practical thinkers. There's nothing wrong with being practical. But there's this ism. All of these are isms. This pragmatism that says, if you just do, truth is whatever works. Truth is just whatever works. How do you like that? Joseph Stalin loved it. Truth is whatever works. And what worked for him was wiping out millions and millions and millions of people who didn't agree with his ideas. Because to make an omelet, you got to crack some eggs. Truth? Pragmatism is dangerous. Pragmatism can lead us into some terrible, terrible places. This says something's only true if it's useful, helpful, empowering, or makes you feel good. If you like it, if it works out for you. Man, do you know how many lies can fit into that definition. Pragmatism. Skepticism is the fourth. Skepticism, this is kind of a silly one, but it's very pervasive. It's amazing how pervasive this is. This is the one that says you can't know the truth even if it does exist. Man, I don't know where you go with that. There's no, I mean, it's to me, I'm like, in one sense, I'm like, well, it's all up from there. You can't know truth even if it does exist. And I got to tell you, in some ways, this is a reasonable conclusion if you believe that your brain is just a random accident, that it was just something that was created by millions and millions of years of blind, random, unguided chance. Then yes, your brain really, you shouldn't trust it for a second. You shouldn't think that any rational thought that you have is a rational thought. That's a pretty dark worldview to live in. We can't be sure of anything. And so therefore what we need is to just be suspicious of everything. And that's a pretty hard world to live in. The fact of the matter is, every single one of these isms, every single one of these worldviews is a very, very difficult world to live in. But it's amazing how many people have adopted this and are pushing hard for it. And we might ask the question, why? Why are people working so hard to push away this idea of truth? And I think when we start having that conversation, we actually start getting somewhere. Why do people reject the idea of objective, absolute truth? Well, several reasons. Number one is to escape accountability and embrace autonomy. Autonomy is like, in our culture right now, autonomy is number one value. It used to be, I really do believe this, in America, it used to be the number one value was liberty. I should be able to do whatever I want, right? And there were limits to that, but that was it. And now it's actually morphed into something worse. It's this idea of autonomy. I should be able to do whatever I want for any reason. It's the highest social value that we have, and it's the reason why there is such a huge fight in the areas of in moral areas like abortion. I should be able to do whatever I want with my body and whatever is in it. And this idea of autonomy. Well, in order to be there, we have to reject that there is a truth outside of us, that there is a source of truth higher than us. We have to reject that truth and set ourselves up as the highest good that we can be. My autonomy is the highest good that can be achieved. You see what's going on here? There's just a few steps down this road further from where we're at, it starts getting real dark real quick. But we want to reject truth to escape accountability and embrace autonomy. Because if objective truth exists, then we are accountable to it. That's just, right? We're accountable for it. If objective truth exists, it means there is something outside of just all of this materialism. It means there's something more, there's something higher. And I'm accountable to it. Rejecting absolute truth allows this moral autonomy. I set the rules. I do whatever I want, whatever feels right. I escape accountability and embrace autonomy. Number two, people reject absolute truth because they want to be the author of their own meaning, purpose, and value. Right? Have you ever heard this? I don't like anybody telling me what to do. And that is true. I think who does, right? Everybody, I've tried to find somebody, anybody, in this world who doesn't have somebody telling them what to do. Like legitimately, right? Everybody has a boss. Everybody has someone up the chain. And like we can go, like most powerful man in the world, right? The president of the United States. Have you noticed how many people telling him what to do? Whew, why would anyone ever run for president? Man, it's like I want everyone telling me what to do. That's what you're saying when you do that, right? I want everybody telling me what to do. This is what we want. Listen, this is one of the most human things we could ever say. I don't want people telling me what to do. And if we take that far enough, we take that to the nth degree, what we're saying is, I want to be my own source of authority. I don't want anything above me. Get off my throne. That's my chair. Right? Modern culture values the self as the source of meaning. I'm going to define the meaning of my life. I'm going to define my own purpose. I'm going to define my value. And when you're in fourth grade or fifth grade, and they're trying to teach you some self-esteem, that sounds great, right? You value yourself, love yourself. You're good. Why are you good? Because you're good. Stop asking questions. Right? Where do we go from there? But here's the thing. All of us just sort of know this instinctively, and whether it takes a year or it takes a decade or it takes 5 of them, we get to the point where like, man, I have been trying so hard to be worth it. I've been trying so hard to be better, to be the kind of good that this world is telling me I already am, and I know they're just making this up. If I could achieve this, I'd have done it by now, right? And a lot of people come to this conclusion, I just can't. Now, listen, when we're talking about coming to Jesus, this is one of the most important conclusions that we can come to, that I can't and he can. But I'm telling you, without Jesus, when we come to this conclusion, this road leads to a dangerous, dark place. When I become the assigner of my value, folks, we just can't reach that high. We can't reach that high. But when we allow God, who is the ultimate truth, to be the signer of our value, and we look at him, do you realize that he actually did this? He actually filled out the bill. He wrote out the price tag. Here's your value. When he gave his life for you on that cross, when he bled and died, he said, this is what you are worth. Oh, you can't touch that with anything else. Oh. Number 3, people reject absolute truth because of an unreasonable leap between the objective and subjective. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, right? If it's how you like your pizza. That's your truth. That is very subjective, right? You can go to, 100 people. I don't know if you're going to have 100 different pizza orders, but you're going to have a bunch of different pizza orders, right? You're going to have, we get a bunch of people over here, the pepperonis, all you pepperonis. Is anybody hungry? Because I'm going to rub this in. I'm sorry. You got your pepperonis over here. You got your meat lovers over here, right? There's going to be a lot of folks from Delta in that category, right? You're going to have all your anchovy people somewhere out back. You got to eat that outside. Everybody has their own thing, right? That's subjective. That's a subjective category. And we kind of like that. I kind of like getting to make choices. I get to choose what kind of picture I put on my phone. I got to choose what I wear every day. This is my truth. This is how I like to look. This is how I like to dress. These are the shoes I like. This is the drink I like to drink. All these things. It's subjective, right? And that kind of subjective truth is a small t truth. It doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. It barely says anything about you other than what it says about everybody. You need to eat. You need to drink. You need to wear clothes. You like that color. Great. It says very little about you, but here's what we do. We take that from the subjective category and we leap it to the objective category without rethinking it, without asking a few questions. Does this make any sense at all? To say, well, God is a reality. That is your truth. That's your flavor of pizza. We're not having the same conversation anymore. It's this irrational, unreasonable leap between the two, between objective and subjective. You can have your favorite food, you can have your preferred music, you can have the personal experiences you like to do. You like to bungee jump, good for you. But this doesn't extend to everything. That doesn't make any sense. And it's a huge error in thinking. And number 4, people reject absolute truth because they've accepted a counterfeit tolerance. Ooh, man, we use that word loosely. We got to be tolerant in our culture. You might think, as much as it's talked about, you might think that was a really, really high value in our culture. I don't believe that for a second. I do not believe that tolerance is a high value in our. Now, there's a couple brands of tolerance. You see that bumper sticker, the coexist bumper sticker. You see that everywhere. It's like it's got all of the little symbols from all of these different worldviews coexist. And I'm like, it's a good thing we have this reminder out there that there are a lot of people on this planet that have different worldviews, right? Because last time I checked, we were coexisting on this planet. It's like, what does this actually mean? This is actually a counterfeit tolerance. And this is so pervasive. You see it all over the place. And I got to tell you, every political party, I'm not getting political here, but I'm going to say this, and this might poke you a little bit. Every political party has every single one of its fingers pointing at the other political party saying, you guys aren't tolerant. And to some degree, I won't say which, because we don't need to go there. To some degree, they're both right, and they're both wrong. We want to embrace a counterfeit tolerance that sort of benefits us, the one that makes me look good, and says you're just intolerant. And you know what? That's almost all the time. It is completely counterfeit. This idea that says this tolerance means every view is equally valid. That's not what tolerance means. That is absolutely not what tolerance means. Because every idea is not equally valid. Right? Try passing a math class with that kind of attitude. Right? Every answer on these sheets is equally valid. Everybody gets an A. And nobody knows how to do math. right? That's what happens. And this is true of everything we learn. You are never going to find this in reality. You can't live in this world. It's not how it works. Not all ideas are as valid as other ideas, right? I do think it is true that cultures that forgive one another are better than the ones that eat each other. Not every idea is the same. And tolerance doesn't mean we just check our brains at the door and choose to believe that they all are the same. That is ridiculous. A biblical idea of tolerance is this: I disagree with you, but I treat you with dignity because you are made in the image of God. You're an image bearer and therefore have infinite value. So I treat you with dignity even if I disagree with you. That is biblical tolerance. Well, there's a lot of reasons that we object to or reject absolute truth, mostly because I want to do what I want to do. And so how do we deal with this? What do we... how do we respond to this? On the next page, there's just I have four basic arguments. There may be more than this, but I'm telling you, there's not a whole lot more than this that's going on out there. This idea, truth is a social construct. We talked about that a little bit. All truth claims are shaped by culture, power, language, and perspective. And this is an idea that just sort of wants to take any valid point and just sort of like just sweep it off the table. We're just going to ignore that. We're not going to give that the dignity of a response, right? It's really talking down to all these things. It's just a social construct, poo-poo on this. And the idea this is very pervasive. This happens a lot of times. It comes in a lot of shapes and forms. But listen, just because it comes in a lot of shapes and sizes doesn't mean it's any different, right? So literally, if you get this, you've got 1/4 of all the arguments down. There are perspectives. It is true. There are perspectives that are culturally shaped. But reality is not culturally shaped. The Chinese are a vastly different culture than we are. They do not have a different math than we do. These realities, they don't have a different periodic table. These objective realities are not shaped by culture. They are discovered by cultures. And everyone is discovering the same realities in these things. This is why scientists and mathematicians from all over the world can work together, regardless of their culture, and actually cause this kind of progress to move further faster. Because though, yes, there are some things that shape culture, reality is not, or some things that are shaped by culture, reality is not one of those things. Gravity existed before culture, right? Jesus either rose from the dead or he didn't. Culture has no bearing on that reality, on that fact. There's another way to refute this argument, this idea that all religious claims are in conflict. Have you gotten this one? Well, how are we supposed to know? Every religion is in conflict with every other religion, therefore, we ought to just get rid of all of it. And I'll tell you, it's that is very true. Lots of different religions claim lots of different things, and they can't all be true. This is important. This is also, there's kind of an inside-out argument of this to say that it doesn't matter, therefore, which religion you pick, as long as, what really matters is that you really believe it with all your heart, that it's really real. You just need to be authentic, whatever it is that you want to believe. And we would not tolerate that kind of thinking in any of the other disciplines, right? I keep picking on math, but I mean, a mathematician that just says, there's lots of different ideas about what 2 + 2 is. But whatever answer you come to, what really matters is that you believe it, right? That you're really sincere in your heart. And every person is going to hear that and go, the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter how sincere you are if you're sincerely wrong. Right? You're still wrong. Just because things are in conflict doesn't mean that it's all, this should all just be swept away. We should reject it all. It doesn't, just because not everything can be true, doesn't mean that nothing is. And we shouldn't allow that to be a reasonable. What it does mean is it means you should evaluate them. Right? If all of these worldviews are in conflict, it calls us to a rational, reasonable evaluation of all of these things so that we could make a good choice rather than just the silly choice of jettisoning all of it. How about Christianity is intolerant? Did you ever get that one? Oh, I can never be a Christian. Christianity is intolerant. Talked about intolerance just a minute ago, right? Belief, this is what this means. Belief in an absolute causes intolerance. And the fact of the matter is, why are we so focused on Christianity when it comes to intolerance? Because every belief has exclusive truth claims. Every single one, every worldview. Every scientific discovery is intolerant of all of the bad ideas that it disproves, right? We kind of come to a point at which we're like, okay, we're going to study gravity. We're going to have all these people who are pursuing different ideas, and then somebody figures it out. And the weird thing is, everybody else stops trying to figure it out. Because we found the answer, we can work on new answers, right? Nobody says, well, that's your truth. I still need to find mine. Well, good luck with that. You just lost all your funding. That's not how any of this works, right? We are intolerant of wrong ideas. And so Christianity being intolerant or exclusive doesn't make it any different than anything else ever. But somehow this sort of just sticks in everyone's mind. And the reality is, you ever think about this statement? When it comes to intolerance, usually the word isn't intolerance, it's judgmental, right? Don't judge, shouldn't judge. No one should judge. Have you ever thought about what a judgment that phrase is? Like, that is a judgment, isn't it? No one should judge. In saying no one should judge, you just judged. You just broke your own rule. This doesn't make any sense. This is completely incoherent, right? And we need to help people to understand that love, humility, and compassion, those are the things that prevent actual intolerance. Love, humility, and compassion prevent intolerance. And there is a world view that is telling the world this is what life is all about. This is what makes being human great. This is what matters for eternity. This is what God, who calls us to himself, is all about: love and humility and compassion. Finally, how about this one? You ever heard? Who are you? Who are you to say I love it. If somebody ever says that, who are you to say? Who are you to tell me? Just say, who are you? Like that's such a non-argument, right? This is the, no one can really be sure about anything. Who are you? How could you be sure? No one can be sure. No one can say this. Which is kind of a weird statement because how can you say that? Right? We're just really beating around the bush of this argument. It's a self-contradictory statement. It doesn't make any sense. If you're sure that you can't be sure, and you should just ask, are you sure? This idea, okay, I think you get it, right? You get it. You can say this. This is easy. I mean, these are pretty easy arguments to deal with. You don't have to be, maybe I probably wouldn't say it like this if we were like sitting around a table and being face to face. So, I'd be a little bit more gentle. I'd try. Lord knows I'd try. But I want you to know, the stuff we've talked about, this is pretty much it. If you know that you're kind of an expert now on this conversation, the fact of the matter is the harder we try to make truth subjective, the more we come to the conclusion that truth is, in fact, objective. It's objective. And let me share with you a few principles that I believe we need to become. This needs to start being our just our go-to in these conversations. Relativism self-destructs. Truth is indestructible. Don't ever let yourself forget this. Relativism self-destructs. Truth is indestructible. If truth is relative, the statement truth is relative cannot be objectively true. Right? I don't know how many other ways to say this. The statement truth is relative is an absolute statement. Amen. This doesn't make you, like the first thing out of the mouth is self-destructive. It can't work. You cannot, it just doesn't work. It's self-destructive. The world just crumbles around you in this idea. This is what relativism does. It just self-destructs. There are no absolute truths. Somebody tells you that, you say, do you mean that? Absolutely. Conversation's over. You cannot deny objective truth without using objective truth. Okay, you get it. 1 Peter. I can't do a sermon without talking about a little scripture. So, 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 24 and 25 says, all flesh is like grass, and all its glory like the flower of grass. And grass withers and the flower fails, but the word of the Lord remains forever. I'm telling you, it's indestructible. I think one of the most important things for Christians to do right now in our culture is to trust the Word. Put the full weight of your whole life on it. What in the world is the purpose of putting a big slab of concrete foundation over here and then building your house over here? That doesn't make any sense. But this is what we do. It's like we're embarrassed of our foundation. Don't be embarrassed of our foundation. It is indestructible. It was made by Almighty God, and it can take whatever you can dish out, whatever anybody can dish out. You can build your life on this truth. Don't buy this lie, and don't let the people around you buy this lie. Friends, we need to get convinced that this foundation is indestructible. And listen, I'm telling you, the only way you're going to know this, not up here, but in here, is to build your life on it. Do you trust him? The word of the Lord remains forever. Principle number 2. Those who deny the truth live as if it's real. This is one of the better things that you can do in this conversation is just let someone else talk. Just let them talk about how nothing is true and just keep going and going and going and going. And then just steal their food. Serious, now when their hamburger comes, grab it. And when they say, "What are you doing? That's my hamburger." Say, "On what basis are you saying that is your hamburger?" We deny that there's something called truth, but then we live every day like it's real. You cannot function without gravity. You cannot function without the laws in math or medicine. I mean, this is what we do. We believe that there are certain things that are true all the time, and we act on that. We sign contracts. Could you imagine a bank that applied this relative worldview? If you put your money on account in that bank, it's gone, right? That is gone. You're never going to see it again. They're going to come back and you're like, "What money?" "My money. I put it on here." "Well, that's your truth." Oh, man, this world stinks. Right? Let's get away from this. None of us live or even want to live in a world that's like this. People live as if the truth exists even when they deny it verbally. That's just the truth. And this is what we as the church, we need to help people. This is not a world that you can walk a straight line in. This is a world that changes every few seconds, pulls the rug out from under you all the time. That is the world that is destroying lives. Romans 2:13-15 says, "For it is not the hearers of the law who are righteous before God, but the doers of the law who are justified. For when Gentiles who do not have a law by nature do what the law requires." Listen to this. Gentiles, the nations, the pagans who do not have the law do by nature what the law requires. Even if they say there's no truth, but they still live truth, they are a law unto themselves, even though they do not have the law. Oh, this is so important. Like, you cannot live in this world. It's an imaginary world that has no citizens whatsoever. Number 3, moral outrage betrays a belief in truth. When you reach across the table and you steal their hamburger, there you go. There it is. Don't do something like key their car or something like that. You go to jail. You'll make your point, but you'll still go to jail or something. I don't know what will happen, but don't tell them Pastor John told me to do that. You can buy them another hamburger, for heaven's sake. If there are no objective moral truths, then racism is only like it's a personal preference thing. You can't say that that's actually wrong. You can't say that there's any evil behind racism. There is nothing substantial enough for us to say genocide is wrong and to condemn it wherever we see it around the world. If truth is not objective, then it's just like it's just more. As long as more people are okay with it than not okay with it, then that's what are you going to do, right? You cannot say child abuse is evil. Not in that world. Moral outrage points to a moral law, and a moral law points to a moral lawgiver. 1 Corinthians 5:1 says it's actually, Paul is talking about, he's talking to the church in Corinth, right? He's getting down, like this is the heart of the reason he's writing. He's upset. When you read 1 Corinthians, this is not a sweet, gentle love letter to a church from Paul. This is it's correction time, right? This is a whooping that Paul is bringing to this church, and now he's getting to it. He's here in chapter 5, and this is like the big deal that's going on. There is someone in the church that is living in incest, and the church goes, "Ew," right? We're all like, "Oh no, that's not right. That's not right." Well, listen to Paul's point. He says, "It is actually reported that there is sexual immorality among you, and of a kind that is not tolerated among pagans." What he's saying is, even lost people understand that there are things that aren't right. This is not right. How come you don't get it? The people of the light ought to get this. And here we are saying, no, this is actually part of what even the world can look at things and go, no, this is wrong. This has to be stopped. The world will say, this evil is worth going to war over. And sometimes they're right. There is evil worth fighting against, worth dying to fight against. And this betrays objective truth. There's a reality of objective truth. Okay, I think we're up to 4. All human reason depends on objective truth. Everything that we do, everything that we think through. If logic doesn't reflect reality, thinking then is impossible. And we do not believe that thinking is impossible. No one does. Thinking itself depends on objective truth. Philippians 4:5, Paul writes to this church and he says, "Let your reasonableness be known to everyone." He doesn't say, let your chaos be known to everyone. Because if there is no objective truth, all there is chaos. All there is random. He says, no, let your reasonableness be known to everyone. Be a thinker. Be a good, disciplined thinker. Number 5, the Bible teaches in every way. Believers, listen. The Bible teaches objective truth is real. We should not be playing around, be messing around with this idea of subjective reality, subjective truth. Listen to this. In John 1:17 says, "For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ." John 14:6 says, Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." John 17:17 says, Jesus is praying, he says, "Sanctify them in the truth." What's truth? Your word is truth. Here's one of the greatest revelations in history when it comes to this conversation. Truth is not a proposition. Truth is not a proposition. It is a person. God is the ultimate truth. He is the ultimate reality. And you can't see unless you see through this lens, this word that he has given us. this worldview. You guys, this is so important. We don't have a prayer in evangelizing a lost world that doesn't believe in truth until we can preach truth, but if you're preaching truth to people who don't believe truth, what are you doing? We need to help people understand that truth is real so that they can see, so that they can know to even look for a truth that is real. We all need to become, I'm not saying you need to become an expert on this, but listen, you need to become versed on this. Because you're going to be talking to your friends, your neighbors, your family members. You got to be able to have this conversation. And you're probably not going to have it. I've said this before, you're not going to have it like we've had it today. You're not going to just talk forever. And most of us don't process all this stuff in one little sitting. This is going to be little bite-sized pieces over a long time. You got to be committed to that. Just a little bit of conversation as we go, little by little by little. I'm saying you will make a difference. We need to learn to be disciplined thinkers so that we can help other people be disciplined thinkers, because this is what will lead to the right thinking. This matters so deeply. Listen, if there is no truth, sin isn't real. The repentance is completely unnecessary. It's irrational. The cross is meaningless. Resurrection is just a feeling. Jesus is at best a life coach, not a savior. But if truth is real, Jesus' claims demand a response. The gospel is not advice, it's a reality to live by. And the truth is real. Eternity hangs in the balance. I mean, the stakes could not be higher. This is such a...
That was a challenging and encouraging word from John Alsdorf. We hope today's message, "Is there such a thing as absolute truth?" has ignited your spirit and given you practical steps for your faith journey. Remember, being a disciple is an active choice we make every single day. We encourage you to reflect on what was shared today and consider how you can apply these truths in your own life this week. If you were blessed by this episode, we'd love for you to share it with a friend who might need some encouragement. You can also subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss a new sermon, daily devotion, or personal testimony. For more resources from Delta Christian Church and the Stronger Walk Ministry, please visit our website at deltachristianchurch.org. Thank you for listening. Join us next time as we continue our journey of becoming action-driven disciples. Until then, go forth and walk a stronger walk.